Almost there.
Because if you're waiting, however long that ride you have to wait for it. Don't get it.
I think we should be good. We'll just double check.
Sounds good.
Yeah. My friends and I, we were going to go like on a weekday.
I have a polar vortex joke. It's gonna be terrible.
All right.
Just as a fair warning.
All right. Sounds good to me.
I'm going to compare. I'm going to say we have a PV problem, but obviously it's potential
I'll be ready for it.
No, this is great. Lately we've been running late.
It should be cool by then there's no line, so like we can just get out of one car, go to another car. Yeah.
People in my all the guys really I got a couple of
that's all.
My brother's
Close.
Eventually, I just we feel the days worse.
Almost had a panic attack.
The Alexander's really bad, horrible, whatever. No good.
Senior trip.
Oh, yeah. I was cyber school. I was cyber school. We all know. So your children get paid.
There's so many more.
That's like the things you're gonna reverse.
That's the best part.
Some of them I think have like
I got to know my.
understand all these. But radar detectors.
2 minutes.
That's
So this
good.
coming week, I'm
Still looking for
I got to lay a
a
reason.
couple faculty to show up here.
Just for Tyler. Just keep it on Europe.
You can do that little hide thing if that's in your way.
Okay.
I don't know why it does that.
It's $500 right now. That's like going on off. Here's our state college. The difference between that and Pittsburgh or
and deal with all the radiation.
I love these. You could just block a kid.
DC next fall for a wedding.
I haven't.
Where's Sarah Bill? Do you know if John's coming? Well, we're gonna get started. Are you guys? You guys? Good? Yeah. Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry to interrupt conversations, but we're going to get started on time today for a change. We have no technical difficulties, at least as of yet, so hopefully it stays that way. Very excited today to have a good friend of mine. He's actually been helping out with the briefings as long as I have, Erik Pindrok from AccuWeather in Millersville, graduate. We're very happy to see a lot of our AccuWeather friends, too. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. Basically, I'm so happy to see such a big crowd because you look outside, I figure most people would want to enjoy maybe our last good state college day, maybe until March or April. Let's not go there. Anyway, if you've been listening to the media, we may have a PV problem. I won't mention the actual term, but in my view, it's more of a potential vorticity problem. So kind of turn it around in a nerdy way. Hopefully Erik will detail everything. But a lot going on. Thanks for coming. And Erik, take it away.
All right, thanks, Dan. As Dan alluded to, I am an AccuWeather meteorologist. I've been with AccuWeather for about a little over 4.5 years, so it's been quite a lengthy period already. Before we get into the actual weather discussion, I wanted to go over real quickly the AccuWeather winter forecast in case anyone hasn't seen it, just to touch on a few key points and also allude to how we go about making a winter forecast. Teleconnections, very important. When you're looking out a few months ahead, you're not going to look at a deterministic model. You're probably not even going to look at ensembles because they don't go out that far. But you look at teleconnections or climate anomalies that extend over periods of thousands of miles or thousands of kilometers across different parts of the globe. So these are just a few of the ones that are important for the weather in the northern or North America. And if we look at sea surface temperatures, this is what some of our long-range team looked at earlier back in September. Notice how we have a laser pointer here. Notice how we have a warm PDO defined by the warmer than average sea surface temperatures across the northern Pacific. Also notice ENSO, slightly positive anomaly, but not really anything to write home about in terms of El Nino, and this is from September. If you look at yesterday's sea surface anomalies, notice how we still have a little bit of a warm PDO. Some cooling certainly noticed across portions of the North Pacific. Also notice, though, in the equatorial Pacific here, we are seeing a little bit more warming, and so these shading here are about a degree, even pushing 2 degrees Celsius warmer than average. So we are gradually building toward an El Nino, most likely a weak one, and that has been the forecast for quite some time. And as a lot of you might know, that it keeps getting delayed, and so maybe now we're finally starting to get some consistent anomalies near the equatorial Pacific. Another thing that is important is, or that you can look at, is snow cover anomaly in October. Obviously, October is a month where temperatures start cooling rapidly in the Arctic, and notice here across Canada, not too much to write home about. Actually, probably a little below average on this date in October. But more importantly, we have across portions of Russia and Siberia a large snow cover, and that is, there's some studies that link that toward a more active branch of the jet stream that can push farther to the south and thus lead to more storminess and more below average temperatures a little bit farther to the south into the mid-latitudes, going on later into the fall, into the winter. So that was something that was taken into account. Just for everyone's, just to say what's current, this is as of yesterday. Notice how the anomaly disappeared here across portions of Russia and Siberia, and we actually now are a little bit below average across eastern Russia when you get, I guess, close to Moscow. But here across the North America, we just had that recent storm, of course, the last day or two, lay down a good swath of snow from the Rockies over into the Great Lakes, and so we have a positive anomaly. And just real quick, average snow cover on November 10th is shown here, and this is the actual snow cover. So again, notice how it is a little bit farther to the south, storm over the last day or so. So when we look at all these teleconnections, there's a plethora to look at. What the long-range team does is they'll put them into a table and they'll assign values, plus, minus, or neutral. And then based on these values, you can look back at analogs from previous winters or previous seasons, and you can say, okay, this season might be looking more like maybe 1999 or 2000, that winter, or maybe this looks like the winter of 77, 78. And so you can compare all the teleconnection setup that you're observing now and extrapolate that a little bit and try to get an idea of what may happen down the road. And again, of course, this is a forecast, so in all likelihood it's not going to be perfect, but at least you have a forecast to present to clients that are curious. Based on the fact that we were thinking a weak El Nino could develop, here are some winter analogs for a Central Pacific and an Eastern Pacific-based El Nino. And we can see this is temperature anomalies here on the right, Central Pacific El Nino, and then this is the Eastern Pacific-based El Nino temperatures. In both cases, showing below average across the east. And then we have precipitation here on the right-hand side, showing you have some anomalous precip in the southeast, but then there's some correlation of drier than average across portions of the Midwest and the Great Lakes. So our team it came up with some analogs potentially for this winter: 2009, 2010, 2002, 2003. This winter, I believe, was the one where you had snowmageddon in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but just something to note. A few highlights here. Again, going with the theme of a dominant or a teleconnection of a weak El Nino, we expect a semi-active subtropical jet stream, which is good news for California. As some of you may know, they're in a pretty bad drought, really record drought, and they also have been getting a record heat. I believe they're on pace to have the record warmest year. So precipitation would be very good news for them. And then if you had an active subtropical jet, that means likely some wintry shenanigans farther to the east, assuming you have the cold air that will be in place. Just some temperature anomalies, precipitation departures here for winter, and then some snowfall anomalies. So that is a quick overview of the forecast. These are just a few points. I'm not going to go over all of them, especially since they're being recorded. If you're curious, you can go back and look at them. But that's just a very, very quick overview on what AccuWeather or what some of the information that AccuWeather long-range forecasters will look at when putting together a winter outlook. Does anyone have any questions with that? Again, I went through that kind of quick, but it wasn't meant to be a very in-depth look.
Any other questions? I'll pass around the mic.
And I will load up, get into the weather discussion here. All right, so if there's no questions on the winter forecast, let's go ahead into the actual weather discussion. What you're looking at here is what has quickly become one of my favorite sites. Anthony Sagliani, a forecaster, was the first to show this site, and ever since then I have it bookmarked. It's great. If you Google Real Earth SSEC, you should get this link. It comes right up, but it's a global composite here of satellite imagery. And again, I think this is great because obviously, you want to know what your local forecast is, but it's great to get an idea of patterns going on across the whole world, and then you can kind of see how it all comes together to your location and why you're getting the weather that you're getting. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and stay focused on North America. And notice we see a few features popping up on satellite. We have almost a little hybrid low pressure developing off the east coast of Florida. This is going to shoot northeastward, mainly off the coast. We have, of course, our disturbance riding through the lakes that brought our swath of snow from the plains to the Great Lakes over the last day or two. Really an Arctic cold front down here to the south, now down into northern Texas, with plenty of cold, very dense air behind it. Obviously, we have good high pressure behind it too, I think close to 1050 millibars. And then going farther to the north, we have a very strong ridge that's bucking up way to the north, really into parts of Alaska and the northwest part of Canada. Some of the thicknesses there are approaching 550, which is anomalously high up across that portion of the country. And then, of course, you get back into the North Pacific. We have a few low-pressure areas to speak of there. But if we go a little closer to home, the main forecast challenge is going to be, let's see here. Well, actually, before we get to that, we should say it's a pretty nice day. Before we have any forecasting challenges, there's really none for this afternoon. We're looking at clear skies, temperatures approaching 60, mostly light winds. As Dan alluded to earlier, after this discussion or after your classes, hopefully you can get out and enjoy the rest of the day because we may not be seeing this for quite a while. With the projected pattern and just climatologically speaking, our averages continue falling for another couple of months. So we have plenty of sun across the area now, but notice that if we look off the coast here, we're starting to see some cloudiness develop, and that's a result of a southerly and southeasterly flow that is becoming apparent there across the southeast or across the southeast northeast coast, and that is a result of we have an area high pressure, elongated area high pressure here that's stretched from near Atlantic Canada up toward northern Quebec, and so the flow around that is east to southeast, and so we're driving in some Atlantic moisture, and we're starting to bring up those dew points a little bit. We're increasing the moisture content, and thus we're getting some cloudiness. If we go ahead in time here, we're looking, this is the 12Z GFS, so we're looking here this afternoon. If we go into this evening, again, notice we have a little bit of printout starting to show up here. I doubt there's any precipitation there through the end of the afternoon. If there is, it's probably a sprinkle, but what I think this is showing is an increase in the low clouds that are likely to spread across much of the southern part of the Northeast and into parts of the Mid-Atlantic here. And then going forward, we can see with the approach of the strong cold front from the west, going forward tonight into tomorrow, we have a good amount of clouds here just out ahead of the front. I do want to go back to the E-wall here. There's a lot of good tools that you can look at in terms of model data. One of them is the 4K NAM, and I particularly like using the cloud cover parameter here because you can get an idea of when those low clouds actually advect into the area. So hopefully we can get most of this on here. Yep. All right, there we go. So notice as we go through here, through the rest of the day, those low clouds build. Again, this precipitation here, I'm probably suspect of that. I doubt there's much going on. I think it's mostly a building of the clouds. Then going into tonight, notice how those clouds expand a little bit toward the west, and that's very common on a south to southeast flow. Again, you're bringing moist air westward, you're increasing elevation, so you're bringing out the atmosphere a little bit, and thus you're getting some low clouds to form. And those between the clouds approaching from the west, from the east, and the cold front approaching from the west, you would expect tonight to become partly to mostly cloudy across the area, and there might even be a shower around here late tonight into early tomorrow as that cold front pushes through. Now, this is a strong cold front, so once it moves to our east tomorrow, we'll go into a west to northwest flow. It's a downsloping flow, again starting around here and pushes and points toward the southeast. So we should clear out with some of those clouds. Temperature-wise, I think tomorrow the cold air is going to be coming in, so certainly we're not going to get near 60. But the coldest of the air is again directed at the plains, portions of the Mississippi Valley and Midwest. It's not initially directed toward the east. So what that means is our highs tomorrow aren't going to be anything out of the ordinary for November. It's kind of a bleeding in of the cold air. When you're really going to notice the later tomorrow night and especially Thursday, when I think temperatures probably struggle to get out of the 30s, around 40 Thursday, and then probably struggling to get out of the 30s Friday into the weekend. And then that brings up the potential for our first, well, maybe not our first, but it brings up a potential for a lake effect regime that starts Thursday and continues Friday and perhaps into Saturday. And so we can take a closer look at that if we go out in time here. Again, this is Wednesday. Just want to make sure I'm not fibbing to you. So now we're on Thursday morning. Again, notice cold front is through. Basically, Thursday morning, you can follow the cold front from here down like this, and pretty much already getting into far northern Mexico, which is not too uncommon. If you have cold, dense air draining into the plains, you can get a pretty good push of that cooler air all the way down into portion of central Mexico, and that's what the case that we have here. Going through Thursday, though, we're going to want to look at 500 millibars and diagnose the situation here, because we'll have a little bit of vorticity approaching. We'll have a little bit of PVA, as denoted here with this area, this low pushing from the Great Lakes down into portions of the mid-Mississippi Valley. And this is Thursday afternoon. If we go through Thursday night into Friday, notice how this pushes through the area. And I think this is really kind of this is where the cold air is coming from. Once this pushes through, we're really going to have that cold air settle in, and that's also going to allow the lakes to light up with some lake effect snow showers and squalls. The wild card with this is that there may also be a disturbance that we can track here at 700 millibars. Notice we have some deeper moisture across the lower Rockies and portions of the south central plains. Notice how this streaks eastward toward the coast. By the time we get to Thursday, this is Thursday afternoon now, and then going into Thursday night, notice we have kind of a blossoming area of higher relative humidity at 700 millibars. This corresponds to a little bit of moisture that may try to make it to the surface in response to a very weak wave that may develop as a result of the vorticity heading toward the coast. Now, the modeling has been a little bit back and forth. I think for State College, it's not really going to be a big deal. If there's any precipitation from that, it looks like it stays off to our south. Here's the NAM interpretation. Again, this is Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, Thursday night, and then early Friday morning. The NAM barely has anything down here to our southeast, whereas the GFS does. So what I think we're looking at for the day, for Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, and Friday, is a development of some lake effect snow showers across the lakes, which I think can give us a couple of flurries, a snow shower Thursday night or Friday, as the flow starts to turn more from the west, eventually toward the west-northwest, I think, as we get later into the time period. Now, again, State College, the more noticeable change is going to be the colder temperatures and the breezy or brisk conditions. So I think certainly if you're out and about Thursday, Friday, or walking to class, definitely going to want to have sweatshirts, hoodies, jackets, probably a far cry from today where some of you might be able to get away with a t-shirt. Here's, if we go a little bit farther out, let's see here. We'll go to Friday. Friday, here at the end of the NAM, we're looking at Friday morning for a good lake effect snow. If you want to see actual lake effect bands set up, not just the individual cellular snow showers and squalls, but if you want to see bands set up, what you look for is an aligned flow. So you want the flow at the surface to be identical to the flow several thousand feet in the atmosphere. So let me back up here to Thursday. Notice aloft here, 500 millibars. We have southwest flow. We have west flow here at, I think, 850. West to west-southwest at 925. So we don't really have an aligned flow. If you go out toward Friday, the flow does align a little bit more from the west-northwest. If you go from the surface, this is 925. 850, a little more northwest, and 500 is also west-northwest. But if you were looking at sounding, which I did this morning, I looked at Bradford, the flow aligns more on Friday. And to me, that tells me that on Friday, there's actually a chance that you may get a more organized lake effect bands. You may have one from Ontario. You may get a few more bands coming from Erie, from Huron, and from Michigan. And so there could certainly be some areas downwind of the lakes that get a pretty good amount of snow in order of at least several inches. I'm sure there's going to be some spots, perhaps near the Tug Hill Plateau, a little bit south of Watertown, that end up, goodness, 6 to 12 wouldn't be out of the question there. The reason I bring that up is because now this is my mongering side a little bit. That's going to show, but if you get west-northwest flow, you can get some bands that set up that actually have a dual lake connection, Huron to Erie, which you can kind of see in the printout. Now, you don't want to use printout for predicting lake effect snow, and it's really kind of where there's going to be actual bands out. But if you look at the pattern, certainly the pattern would indicate that there could be some areas where you get bands that have that dual lake effect, or drawing moisture from both lakes, which could have some pretty intense bands, perhaps setting up at times across the snow belts of northwestern PA and southwestern New York. And of course, every now and then, once every few years, you can get one of those bands to snake down into central PA, which again is not unheard of, but I probably wouldn't play that up too much. Just something to watch if you're a snowmonger. So that pretty much leads us into the weekend, which still looks to be cold. Notice here on the surface map we have high pressure building in. As the high builds in to the east, it sits over the lakes. We get more stable air mass, so the lake effect snow diminishes. We see we see skies that end up turning mostly sunny. Caveat to that is notice that the kinking here of the isobars. Let's see, we are on Saturday night. If we go to Saturday morning, it looks like high pressure sitting over the Ohio Valley. We should have a pretty nice day, and I agree with that. But as someone who's been here for several winters in central PA, you really have to make sure you're not seeing any kinked isobars here still coming into northern PA. If you have a cyclonic flow with those kinked isobars coming into northern PA, that's where you can get your stratocumulus clouds to linger, and there's where you can have a forecast bust. Let's say Saturday your forecast is mostly sunny. It wouldn't be out of the question that you wake up and it's actually mostly cloudy, because you have the stratocumulus clouds that typically can set up in areas downwind of Erie, and it's classic. You'll see it bank up against the Laurels. It'll come right up through Center County and kind of snake in this area here. And then, as you go throughout the day, you might notice them break up. But that's one potential fly in the ointment for a sunny day Saturday. But we have high pressure building in for the weekend. At some point, we should have partly to mostly sunny skies with high pressure building overhead. And we are now going into Sunday. By Sunday, high pressure moves off the coast. If we take a look at our 500 millibar pattern, notice, if we go back to Saturday, we have a weak ridge axis right over the region here, which is, indicative of fairly tranquil weather, albeit chilly weather. If we go into Sunday, notice how we have a very potent trough digging to our west. As of this frame, it's slightly positively tilted trough, but it's still digging off to our west. If we go through time here, this is Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and then going into Monday. Notice how that trough swings through. But notice as it's swinging through, it's progressive, and it's not really taking on that much of a negative tilt. So what that tells me is that any disturbances that are embedded in the flow are likely going to be progressive. And if we go to the printout here, we can see that we have a northern stream feature that moves through here on the GFS, and you can see it's rather progressive. Now let's take a look a little bit at what's going on down here in the Gulf. We have, okay, thank you. We have a rather active subtropical branch of the jet stream, and if we go back in time here and follow our 700 millibar flow, notice all this moisture coming into the west. This is going to continue to move into the Intermountain West. A piece of it dives down into the southeast and Gulf coastal states, and then tries to make a run up the coast. But what we're missing, if you go back to 500, is we're missing that interaction from the subtropical branch and the northern branch of the jet stream. Notice how we have another feature digging here across the northern lakes. These two features, the one that's pushing up along the Carolina coast and also what's diving down here into the northern lakes, it does not appear that they get together in time for a large East Coast storm. Now, with that said, this is a deterministic model. when we're looking out, in the day 5-6 time frame, you do want to gear a little bit more toward the ensemble. And I do have the ensembles up. I probably won't have time to show them, but in looking at the ensembles, they also suggest that this is mostly a rather progressive flow. So that doesn't mean that it can't snow later Sunday into Monday, or that there can't be wintry precipitation, which I think there is a shot at some wintry precip here in central PA, most likely later Sunday into early Monday, and that's during this time frame here. As you have just the northern piece alone swinging through is going to have some moisture with it. It'll tap into a little lake moisture, and so I think we do have the opportunity for a light, either light snow, some flurries to move through again later Sunday into early Monday. But at this point, I think I'm steering away from a larger storm, which some of the deterministic models showed a few days ago. And again, I want to emphasize ensembles, ensembles, ensembles. You want to look at your ensembles when you're looking this far out and not get caught up on one run. If we look at the European real quick, the European does have a similar solution. Notice at 500 millibars, we have a lobe of vorticity stretching from the St. Lawrence Valley down to Texas that swings through. And there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of potential, but it's not coming together in time for there to be a large storm for us. But even the European, it does suggest that there could be a light snowfall that across central PA later Sunday or into Monday, and so it's certainly something that can be watched. It may be our first, widespread event where people are seeing snow as opposed to just flurries and isolated snow showers. So something that certainly bears watching for the long range. But then after that, looking even beyond over the next, going out to day 7 to 14, I want to make you guys aware we still have a very active subtropical jet stream. We have another low that's going to barrel into the west here. You may not be able to see it too clearly here, but notice how the jet stream, this is 500 millibars, but if you were to look at 300 millibars, the jet stream still rises well up into Alaska during this time and then dives back down into the northern plains. That's the polar branch of the jet stream. So we have subtropical energy still barreling into the west coast, and we still looks like we're going to have that polar branch of the jet stream coming southward into the Great Lakes and Northeast. And so, for those that want to see a wintry event, the pattern is about as ripe as you could hope for mid to latter November, that eventually there could be a wintry event down the line. Again, I'm not going to speculate too much beyond day 7, but there's at least, the pattern is on the table between now and, let's say, Thanksgiving for there to be a winter event somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Where that is, who knows? But again, the pattern is on the table. So that's, see, it's 1 o'clock. So does anyone have any questions or anything? Or is that it?
Mike coming over.
Sorry, I kind of missed it before, but what were you looking at with the active current, the subtropical jet stream and the disturbance coming from the north?
Yes. So if we look at 500 millibars here, we have. I'm not seeing that enough, but if you take my word, we have really kind of an omega block up here where you have very high heights across portions of Alaska, the northwest Canada, parts of the North Pacific, and then you have the main branch of the jet stream diving into the plains, into the Great Lakes, and into the Northeast. Underneath that omega block, you have your subtropical jet, and that is forecast to bring some disturbances to parts of the west coast over the next week or so. And so as long as we have this subtropical branch of the jet stream bringing moisture into portions of the west, again, that subtropical branch is going to push moisture pretty far to the south across the southern U.S., if there can be interaction from that subtropical jet and the polar jet to the north, then there can be something that can brew in terms of storminess. For the event that I talked about Sunday into Monday, it doesn't look like that interaction is going to take place. It looks like those branches of the jet stream remain separate, at least until it gets off the coast, which means there's likely not a threat for a big storm. Again, nevertheless, though, we still could have, even just with a little bit of interaction, we still could have some wintry precipitation around later Sunday into Monday.
Other questions for Erik? So, any weather predictions for the kickoff at noon?
Oh, goodness.
It has to be a football.
Yeah. I guess that's a safe bet. I would say, going with what I was talking about earlier, I'd be, it looks like high pressure is building in. I would be cautious about planning on it being mostly sunny or about it being sunny. In fact, the Euro actually still has some printout here, so I think it could end up being a feeling like a pretty chilly day, despite the temperatures being chilly, but also having some lingering clouds around for Saturday at noon.
Yeah,
So.
If you start out with sun in the morning, it's just going to self-destruct.
Exactly.
Too much cold air involved.
Yep.
You're going to get those thin pancakes right out of you.
Yep, that'll take forever to burn off. They're born off by the evening when it clears out.
Anybody else? Anybody? All right, let's thank Erik.
All right.
Next week, before he gets up and leaves, we have Corey and Mike from our own department, 2 graduate students. So come on out. There might be more entertainment with the weather.
I don't think I said the word polar vortex
No, you
once. So that's a success. Hey. Yes.
I appreciated that you had the confidence part in the seasonal forecast and also the ensembles. I do a lot of predictability.
Yes.